Hey everybody, welcome back to Laptop Seniors. Today I'm going to tell you a story and I'm going to tell you a way to save money. Specifically, it's going to be how to save $20,000 on an air flight. And I'm going to tell you why and everything about it. Now, this is a particular type of way of working airlines, and it can take a while to do, although I'm going to show you one that's not going to take all that long. I think this whole video is only going to be about 10, 12 minutes. Something like that. And you're going to literally see me save $20,000, a little over $20,000 on airline flights. Now, let me tell you what prompted this, because it was something I discovered about 10 years ago when Vivi turned 60. And she, I said, well, what do you want to, it's a big milestone. Anything that you really would love to do? And she goes, yeah, I'd like to see Australia. I want to go see Sydney. And I was like, okay, that's a long ways away. So anyway, I thought, all right, let me see if I can pull that off, and I thought it would be a fortune. And it was a fortune to fly down there. The normal way, but this is not going to be the normal way to fly there. And for the most part, almost all the way, we were on the exact same flights. It was literally the same planes. So first I pieced it together the normal way. I just put in the dates of what where we're going and where we want to go. And, adding in that, it's like, well, if you're going to go that far, why don't we also see some other cool places? Let's see Hong Kong and let's see Singapore, which, if you're watching this, not great places to retire to, but boy, in your lifetime, you should see, Singapore and Hong Kong, because it's like walking into the future 10 years. It really is from right now, especially Singapore. Singapore is insane. And at some point, we're going to do a video and show you Singapore, because we have a ton of video from there. But for now, I'll just keep on saving you money, okay? How you do this. So I did the way the normal flights would be. I just put in, okay, we want to go to Hong Kong, and then we want to go to Singapore, and then we want to go to Melbourne, and then we want to go to Sydney, and then we want to come back from Brisbane. We're going to do a week in each of those places and 2 weeks between Sydney in Brisbane, because we were going to drive up the coast and stay in the Gold Coast. That's where the timeshare was, which is close to Brisbane. Okay, so that's essentially the trip. I put it together, and it was somewhere around $14,000, $15,000, maybe a little bit even more than that. It might have been 16, but it was in that range, somewhere between $14,000 and $16,000 for the two of us, just for the airfare. It was like, wow, this is a pretty expensive birthday present, even though it's a big thing here. Holy moly, is there some other better way of doing this? Yes, thank you for that. So anyway, I decided to start working on it, and I probably worked 40 hours on this thing at least to try to figure out a way around it. And I worked the whole trip down to about $8,000 total, okay? And, that's with the airfare and the timeshares and the hotels. And those are the numbers I remember. So obviously the airfare was certainly lower than that. And it was different ways of doing things that I continue to do to this day when circumstances like this come up, where you're going to go a long distance and there's things in between that you want to see, okay? I'm going to explain that to you, how to do it. And in this particular instance, I'm going to show you how we drop from $25,000 flights down to a $5,000 flight that's doing the exact same thing, same places. Half the time it's on the same airlines, and it ends up being, remarkable, okay? So that's what this video is about. Let's go to the computer now, and I'll show you how to do it. Okay, let's recreate that trip. I have no idea what this is going to look like. Because I believe, if I recall, we went on Cathay Pacific to Hong Kong, and there was a sail on, and they flew right over the North Pole as opposed to going the normal way. So I don't know if that's going to make a difference or not, but the savings still should be substantial. From this way, I'm going to be doing it the normal way to the other way I'm about to show you. So the first thing we need to do is go to flights, and we need multi-city. And I'm going to do one for you, and then I'm just going to lay the rest in and jump ahead just to save time. So we're going to be leaving from New York. Okay, so New York, first stop is going to be Hong Kong. And we're going to leave on November 5th. Okay, so there's number one. Now I'm going to lay in the rest and then come back to this. Here's the flight. New York to Hong Kong, Hong Kong to Singapore, Singapore to Melbourne, Melbourne to Sydney. Then we rented a car and drove to Brisbane and, stayed time on the Gold Coast. And then we went back home to New York. What does this cost? Survey says $12,719 on Cathay Pacific. 12,000 bucks, or 13,000 if you want to go on United, which is actually operated by Nippon Airways. So roughly you're into 12 or 13 grand. Okay, so let's save this price and we'll come back to this. We'll start all over again in flights, except we're going to be doing a round trip. We're going to get the biggest leg out of the way at the cheapest possible price. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go from New York and we're going to go to Hong Kong. Lots of flights go to Hong Kong. And then we just have to get the dates right here. Obviously, we're leaving on November 5th. That's the first one. Okay. Now, we were coming back on the other one on the 10th. So what I'm going to do is just add a couple more. Maybe just, I could do one, for relaxation, because it's going to be a lot of flying. Boom, boom, boom. I'm going to do 2 days in Hong Kong. It's not going to make a difference for the price. It just gives us some overlap. So on the 10th, we're going to be flying from Brisbane to Hong Kong. Then we're going to go hang over, a day or two, because I don't know when this flight's going to get in. Might be in, late at night, which means if you go out the next day, that's going to be torture. So we'll stay over and then we'll go out on the 12th. Okay. So this is going to be a round trip flight right here. And let's see what this comes out to. $13.84. Awesome. Cathay Pacific. That's fantastic. It's a great airline. And it's 16 hours non-stop. Okay, now I'm going to just choose this. We're going to do the light end of all of this. Carry-on bag, first check bag, and you have to pay for the seat, to pay extra something. It's probably going to be maybe $100. Anyway, we're going to take all of this as being the cheapest one just to see what it comes out to. All right, it's going to move on to the next one. Now, presumably this next one is going to be free. Yeah, and it is. Okay, if you wanted to choose a different airline, pay extra. I don't know why you'd do that. Again, Cathay going back from Hong Kong to New York, free. So let's just choose this one. And again, do the same thing. So now we have a price overall to go from New York to Hong Kong and Hong Kong back. With taxes, there's the price, $13.83.80. So let's round it off to $13.84. Now we want to get from Hong Kong to Singapore and keep going. Okay, so how do we do that? So we can, I think the easiest way is going to be doing multi-city. We can try it as one ways, but I believe one way is going to be more expensive because usually airlines sort of in that part of the world, but again, you're going to need to try it both ways. I mean, there's no quick way of just calling it when you're doing this type of stuff. I'm just showing you what you can do. I'm going to try multi-city, and when I'm going to start out in Hong Kong, okay, and then we're going to go to Singapore, and then we're going to go from Singapore to Melbourne. And I'm going to actually try this one more time after that to go from Melbourne to Sydney, because it's possible that there's some airline that's bouncing from Hong Kong to Singapore to Melbourne and then on to Sydney. But I don't know. Now we'll just get the date right. Let's see what this is going to cost. $429 on Ximen Airlines, Chinese airline, obviously. Philippine Airlines, $496. $496 on Philippine. Any other ones in here? Cathay Pacific, $565. So you can jump up to $565 if you wanted to, but again, we're just holding this. We're going to stay with the low price one. I'm curious here. I'm going to add one more flight and just see what it does. I'm going to add one more on here, and we're going to go from Melbourne to Sydney and see what that does. And add 7 days onto that, which is going to be November 26th. This may not be cheap, may make it worse, but let's just see. Right, see, it really jacked the price up considerably. Because Cathay Pacific is the only one that would do that, and it's going to be $1,000. So let's just skip that. We're just going to remove that flight and go back to the original price, which I think was $429, something like that. $429. Okay, so that's our next rung, $429, which is Hong Kong to Singapore. Let's just choose it. You're going to have to pay for the seats. If you want to choose your seat, carry-on bag, first check bag included. Nice, okay. And no more price for the next one. Again, just choose this. And we'll see the ultimate fee here. Wow. The price dropped. 428 to 386. That's wild. I didn't expect that. All right, 386. Now we need to get from Melbourne to Sydney. And I might try this one more time of actually doing two things together and see if that works out okay. Maybe it won't, but doesn't hurt to try. Let's do the multi-city again, because it's possible that something like Qantas or some other airline that flies within Australia also has a flight to Hong Kong. So let's go from Melbourne, to Sydney. We want to do that. Then I was going to drive the rental car from Sydney, up to the Gold Coast and then on to Brisbane. So let's go from Brisbane to Hong Kong. And I'll just get the dates right. So matching the other one we did all on one ticket, we're going to go from Melbourne to Sydney on November 26th. Then we're going to have a 2-week space in between where we drive up the coast and then leave Brisbane and go back to Hong Kong on December 10th. So let's lay that in. Again, we've already got the return from Hong Kong to New York, leaving on December 12th. That's what we already set up. Let's see what this costs. We can be on Jetstar, $722. Not sure what Jetstar is. That sounds vaguely familiar to me. I think it's a kind of a decent low-cost airline. Let's see if they have one of the other airlines that you'd know. Qantas. You know what? Let's just choose Qantas. Everybody's heard of Qantas, and it's a decent airline. We know it. It's only a little bit more. So to go from Melbourne, $845. So Melbourne to Sydney, $845, and that's also should include seat, personal item, carry-on bag included. Nice. No extra cost. And then we're going to add on Brisbane to Hong Kong for that $845, and we'll hit that. Well, same thing. And there's the final price, $844. Let's recap all of this and put it together so it all makes sense and you can really see the difference of doing it the way I just described. The original ticket, one person, New York to Hong Kong, Hong Kong to Singapore, Singapore to Melbourne, Melbourne to Sydney. We drive up the coast, leave from Brisbane, back to New York. $12,719 per person. Two people, $25,000. If you do it this way, round trip New York to Hong Kong, $1,384 for the round trip. That gets you to Hong Kong, and then it gets you back to New York for nothing. $1,384. Hong Kong to Singapore, $386. It also takes you on from Singapore to Melbourne because that part's free. So you got $386. The next one, a similar thing happens, Melbourne to Sydney, $845. It also gets you from Brisbane back to Hong Kong for nothing because airlines fly those routes and you just want to catch the airlines that are doing that. When you fly this type of route, you're going to be going across many different airlines and they're going to be racking big charges on you because it's, they're trying to piece together this and it's different airlines, different routes, and it may not be the stuff that they have cheap flights on. Certainly there's going to be airlines that would be flying from Hong Kong that are going to Australia ultimately. I mean, just think that through. They're going to go that route. Then they may go direct. They may go right from Hong Kong to Melbourne. But they would also, so many airlines do this, they bounce through countries on their way. I mean, how many times have you flown to, like, say, Rome, or you flew to Athens or Madrid or something, and they'll stop over somewhere, they'll bounce through London, they'll bounce through Paris or Berlin. That's what airlines do. And you just got to think about it for a second and go, well, okay, if I'm going from Hong Kong and I ultimately want to get to Melbourne, there's got to be airlines that bounce through Singapore, and that's all this is. They're basically saying, all right, there's a flight that goes from Hong Kong to Singapore, and then there's a lot more flights that go from Singapore to Melbourne because it's close. And they just put them together and make it zero. Same thing with these two. So ultimately, what are the savings? $25,000 versus $5,000. You save $20,000. I love when I find hacks where I can save big dough, and on that trip it was like insane. Okay, and amazing. It still works out because when I went to do this, I was like, some airlines would have sales, Other ones don't. You try to find them one by one. It's like a nightmare. Where when you just put in smaller searches and try to piece them together, the sales come to the top where normally they won't. They'll sort of root around them and give you the more expensive stuff. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, subscribe to the channel. That always helps. Hit the like button and the bell too, because you want to get more of these. I just keep doing them. When they come to mind, I just rack them out for you. So hopefully they're saving you money, saving you time, and they're helpful. And until that next video, see ya.